he said to me, he should be done in May, but we're ready to just do it right now. We're ready to kill them, especially because y'all know, man, they're egos. And so the biggest thing is, I'm like, I should know how to do this better. You don't know what you're talking. It's March 1st, you got 4 weeks. It's due April 1st. Trying to fool them. Because you got to write, then you got to send to the advisor, then they got to send it to the proofreader, then you got to write, and then like trying to pick every move to make every decision. Proofreader should I get? Like just do what needs to be done and all this content, he's record. So he's used to not only that, but he's used to difference. He's used to people referring to, and I'm like, stop. Just shut up. You guys are going like he's used to people. Oh, he's a mess. He's used to people and he's also preparing everything. So he quickly jumped into other jobs. And so to finish the curriculum, and so he's being and so he flies out April 17th with them, and so that's awesome. It's awesome.
Good afternoon. And thank you all for joining us. I am LaConda Georgia Scott, and I have the honor of serving as chapter president of the Baptist Delta Alumnae chapter. With the members of Baptist Delta, please. It's kind of obvious. Thank you. officers and members of that result, we welcome you all to the evening with Dr. Antoinette Harrell for our Women's History Month.
And I am Denise Piper, First Vice President of Program for the National Coalition of 100 Black Women Incorporated, Metropolitan Baton Rouge Chapter. And will the members of 100 Black Women please stand up?
March is an awesome month. Why, you ask? Well, March is my birth month. March is National Social Work Month for social workers. National Read Across America Day is held in the month of March. In Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, March is Sisterhood Month. Most importantly, March is Women's History Month. So what better way to kick off the month of March than here with us this afternoon for what will be an amazing event. So thank you to the National Coalition of 100 Black Women, Metropolitan Baton Rouge Chapter for collaborating with Baton Rouge Delta for this outstanding event for our community. And thank you to our first Vice President, Mrs. Cynthia Alumnae, who's also Chair of Membership Services, Ms. Erica Williams, who's our second Vice President for programs on the Baton Rouge Delta side, and the Membership Services Committee. This program in collaboration with 100 Black Women ties into Sisterhood Month for Baton Rouge Delta under our Membership Services Committee. So thank you to the members who are present here on this afternoon.
I did skip a part because our president stepped out, but as you see, she is in the building. And we thought she would be at home resting, but there is no rest for a woman on a mission. We say thank you to the Baton Rouge Delta Alumnae Chapter for the opportunity to collaborate on this Women's History presentation, where we have the privilege to receive what I know to be a great message from Dr. Antoinette Harrell. Women's History Month runs from Friday, March 1st to March 31st. And as we embark on this journey through the great month of March, which is Women's History Month, we all know that the greatness of a woman cannot be defined by just 1 month.
As we honor Women's History Month, let us reflect on the journey of those who came before us. Let us pledge to carry forward their legacy with pride, passion, and purpose. Together we shape history, inspire change, and pave the way for a brighter, more inclusive future for all. From one sister to another, happy Women's History Month. We will now have the meditation from Ms. Nelson, chaplain for National Coalition 100 Women. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Oh, it's more of us in here than that. Good afternoon. All right, that sounds so much better. Shall we pray? God, we thank you for thinking of us so much, Black women, that you would carve humanity out of the continent of Africa. That when you created the heavens and the earth, you were thinking of a garden close to present-day Ethiopia. We are grateful for the privilege of birthing humanity. We praise your high and holy name because you are the strong tower that has allowed us to reach this present moment. A moment in the state of Louisiana in which we fear will take us backwards rather than forward. Remind us in our trepidation, you sit high and look low, and you lean over to hear when we pray, because you love us. I ask that you bless Dr. Antoinette Harrell as she ruminates on what she has been tasked to do today. Allow your spirit in her to touch your spirit in us, this audience, for our edification. Make her words remind us that we are a people best served living in a community with one another. Give her strength to continue to be your hands on this earth in the tracing of African Americans' genealogy. Fortify her as she works to make the invisible visible again. Forgive us when we are drunk with the wine of the world, that we forget you. God, please forgive us when we obfuscate about the who, which has brought us along this way. Be merciful with us when we forget that you have been Black people's historical shelter in the time of storm. Allow us to continuously hide in your strength and your power. When the road ahead is dark, when the way seems unnecessarily rough, and we're feeling mighty low. Bring us back to your word that tells us that you're a lifter of a bowed down head. Bless the food that we will consume that often tantalizes our taste buds. Allow it to be nutrition for our bodies and an unspoken language amongst our souls. We ask all these things in your darling son's name. Amen.
Amen.
Good afternoon. First of all, I just want to thank everyone for coming out on this beautiful Saturday afternoon. Sometimes it's hard to get people to come to stuff like this, and so they're like, "You want to spend my Saturday evening listening to what? About slavery?" You know, so just you are appreciated so much. This is what Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated put on our national social media page on yesterday to honor the beginning of History Month, and I think it's appropriate for this occasion. Delta Sigma Theta's history is women's history. Our sorority is a testament to the strength, resilience, and boundless potential of every woman and every sister who has walked this earth. Each one with her unique gifts and talents contributes to empowering communities, making the world greater for the next generation. From our founders who planted the seeds of liberation and equality for women, to every woman who continues to nurture those roots, we stand grounded in the legacy of courage and determination. And we could not think of a better partner than the National Coalition of 100 Black Women, the Incorporated Metro Baton Rouge chapter, to join with us on this excellent event and evening with historian Dr. Antoinette Harrell. Dr. Antoinette Harrell of Davie, Louisiana, is a prolific community activist who created a grassroots organization called Citizens for Change. She has become a leading historian of sharecropping and peonage research throughout the Mississippi Delta. As a historian, Harrell uncovered cases of illegal peonage, debt slavery in 16 states and revealed painful stories of African Americans from the southern states of Louisiana, Mississippi, Arkansas, and Florida. Some African Americans from this region were still living enslaved well into the 1960s, including some on Mississippi plantations. Although peonage was outlawed by the United States Congress in 1867, this inhumane practice of debt servitude flourished in the South nearly 100 years after the Emancipation Proclamation and Reconstruction era. Harrell compiled over 25 years of extensive research on peonage in the southern region of the United States. Her work has been highlighted in People magazines as well as in many national and international publications. Many of her contributions to African American women's history, activism, and race relations centered around her genealogy research. She serves as a genealogist, historian, and producer of genealogical television program Nurturing Our Roots. She's also wrote several books, including The Department of Justice, Slavery, Involuntary Servitude, and Peonage. In 2003, Harrell was appointed Honorary Assistant Attorney General for the state of Louisiana for her work in the study of genealogy. She also co-founded a genealogy camp for children in New Orleans. Her collections of work can be found at the Center for Louisiana Studies at Southeastern Louisiana University in Hammond and the Amistad Research Center in New Orleans, Louisiana. We are lucky to have her for Women's, I say this all the time, last month for Black History Month and for Women's History Month. In my opinion, she should be booked every day. She should be, I don't know if you are or not, but you should be. You should be, you should be somebody that's hard to get. She should be charging thousands and thousands of dollars to hear her knowledge. Thank God she's not. But either way, I just really want, we're very honored to have you, and I would like to introduce Dr. Antoinette Harrell.
Greetings, my beautiful sisters.
Greetings.
What an honor to be among beautiful, strong, and powerful women. And one day, all right. But certainly, my journey started with self. The most important history to me was history of self. That which we know in this day and time, they're trying to erase it. But we cannot erase. We will not erase. I always focus on my own history because if it wasn't for Big Mama, Auntie Rose, and the women in the community, it wouldn't be no us.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, we celebrate those that is popular, the mainstream, and we forget about those that many do not even know their name. And I certainly want to say to all of my beautiful sisters, thank you all for inviting me. And I said, Heavenly Father, they must want to do what I have to say because they moved the date. And I asked him, you tell me what to say. I started a PowerPoint. He said, no, I don't want you to go that way. Go this way.
My God.
And in my travels, I learned to listen to that instinct and that voice that speaks so loudly.
Yes.
Because it has been my shining star. So to be obedient and bring to you one of the most powerful messages that I think is important is about self. What makes you you? Who was that woman that shoulders you stand on? How did she shape your life? And as we reflect upon those women, who many in the history books will never know their name, we know them. We must always remember them. So I'm going to turn my attention to this brief PowerPoint presentation. Women who advocate for diversity and inclusion. In 1994, when I started researching my family history, my mother would always tell me the same stories over and over and over again. So soon I learned to tell them myself. But I must say something. I kept saying, I know she's going to tell me the same thing over again. It's like says, like went off, so you better get every story that she's trying to give me. She's giving me some keys to lots of things that many refuse to talk about. And to this day, my mother transitioned this month, 4 years ago. But just think if I would not have gotten those stories. I come from a very large family. And most of those that's older than me cannot tell the family history. So I say, members of my mother today, it will go on. Women are the backbone of our communities, our societies. It wouldn't be what it is today if it wasn't for the strong women that held it all together. And who are those women? They're women that came before you. They're women that shaped your life. Those are the women that we'll be talking about today. Throughout history, women have been the backbone of our families and communities. Women have always been the source of strength. And I want to say that because I learned about that strength through my own journey. Every tear became a stepping stone for me. Because in this work, I have had to cry. I have had to digest some things because in the history class, the history books, a lot of things I discovered was not in those history books. It was not in the universities. It was passion that drove me to do what I did. I'm not a college graduate, and And I still say today, I'm very proud because that let me know that I was called to do this work. And that's a big call. That's a higher call. And matter of fact, if I wanted to pursue this work, if there's no university that could have taught it to me, so I had to dig in the attics and in the vaults and in somebody's homes to get it that had it locked away under the key. Who are they? They are our mothers, our grandmothers, our aunts, our sisters, our daughters, our nieces, our friends, educators, doctors, nurses, midwives, elected officials, journalists, authors, filmmakers, and storytellers, and so much more. Sometimes I don't even have to have the time. Just Big Mama owns. That's me. I stand on the shoulders of my grandmother. My grandmother, I was born in 1960, during the height of the civil rights movement. And the first person that ever told me that you're gonna be somebody was my grandmother. Because all through life, we hear this and girls hear this all the time. You're never gonna amount to anything, we're talking about. Some people will say that, and they will tarnish that child for the rest of their life. But I'm so glad that the words that my grandmother told me, it made me face every challenge, everything they would have said, could have said. She told me that it roll off like a duck and keep on flying high. And I fly high on those words today. So we know who they are. They're the women who face oppression, the women who faced slavery, Reconstruction, Jim Crow, integration, abuse, race, affirmative action, women who stood up for change and some who died for change. Yet they faced challenges, and every challenge they made them strong and resilient. Oftentimes we always hear the story, how did Big Mama feed all those people she dealt? We was all by her house, there was pallets in the floor, there was enough food, how did she do it? Well, when I read the story about Jesus and the 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish, that reminds me of grandma. But that's what she did. Yeah. She never turned nobody down. Not the neighbor's children, not the church children. Everybody was always at Big Mama's house. I don't know how she did it, but they did. The hands that guided us, they're not the ones in Hollywood. Mm-hmm. They're the ones right there, your own genealogy, your own DNA. Those are the that I live up today. Our story, our history, our legacy, telling, researching, documenting to certain our story. I was very excited, just really having to move outside the home of photographs and oral history. And I started going to the libraries and looking at other places. When I got to the library given to Louisiana, to the genealogy department, I found there was nothing besides the census and those type of records. So I combed the shelves and I scanned the shelves, pulled book after book after book. There was not even books that looked like me. I told the families that I knew on my contribution to Tangible Peonage, which was formed in 1869. When that tear rolled down my eyes, that was the first tear. They said, now what do you do? You just can't keep crying. How are you gonna change these? What are you gonna do? Are you gonna wait for somebody else? You're gonna change. 1994, I knew I had to make sure there was other books about Black families in the Florida parishes in that library. And it's still an ongoing mission that I'm continuing to do. Second thing I wanted to do was take all of those beautiful images that I met through people, collect through people. I know most of you, if you live in Baton Rouge, you probably heard of the photographer, Willie Harrison. When his children cleaned out his house, they threw over 40,000 pictures outside on the sidewalk. And those pictures was mostly about Baton Rouge, the churches, the universities, the associations, organizations, Black businesses. Right now, I was reading this recently that East Baton Rouge Parish Library is scanning 200 of those photographs. There was another photographer that collected those photographs, and I'm glad that he decided to write a book. So I'm often thinking about what am I going to do with my material, because I know my two sons will do the same thing, because they don't have interest in this. Not now. Hopefully, when they age out a little bit, it will become important to them. So that's why preserving was very important. I have been in so many homes that I can't even begin to tell you how many educators I have went in their homes and I see tons of information that is in their attics. And I say this all the time. Why are we educating the silverfish, the cockroaches, the birds, and letting this history just go away? Educating, if you're an educator, it does not stop when you retire. It keeps giving and going and building and sharing and uplifting. How could movies be written? How could books be written? How could anything be told if we hold it too close? So when we do this, nothing comes in. But when I open my hand, other people start sharing. I just hope those that really understand the foundation is we're going to write our history. It is our responsibility to write our story, tell our story, and preserve our story. Because oftentimes we hear that when other people make movies, they didn't tell it like it was supposed to be done. We hear that all the time. So we're expecting somebody else to tell it when it's our responsibility to tell it. In my genealogy research, I thought I was going on a beautiful, peaceful journey. That probably would have gave me some things along the way. But what I learned is that slavery was abolished in 1863, but Texas 1865. But when I met a family that says, my family didn't get out of slavery till 1860, I had two legs, didn't it? Almost knocked me off my feet. So what did you say? She said 1860. So I set out to find other people that had those same stories. I flew to the National Archives and I looked in Record Group 60. And I'm sitting there looking at these piles and all these complaints was coming in to the FBI, the NAACP, letters from people that was talking about how individuals was held in slavery. The index told me that the last case came in 1970. So May's story, May was a brave woman. She said, well, look, she said, I'm gonna tell my story. They can't do anything more to me than they have already done to me. I just want to tell it like it is. I gotta tell it. What I have found is enough to drive you insane. Crawling in attics, going into dark vaults, reading material that said, wait a minute, who was this and what was this? Sometimes putting my life online, looking at my children, my son, when I leave out the house and saying, Heavenly Father, bring me back and keep him safe. Because I was unveiling some things that they didn't want you to know. My genealogy turned into something else. It turned into detective work. And May was the first person. And in memories of May, I always called her the modern day Queen Mother Hamilton, because she led me back. She led me back to that dreadful day of plantation. 3.4 million people have watched this film, this documentary. And to this day, her brother Arthur still don't have a movie. You see? But you see, there was a child dancing. I don't have anything against dance. We're supposed to dance and have a good time. But I say to my family, who's getting ready to have a reunion, baby, go to the reunion. He's talking about how good, girl, you look so good. You know, what's on the menu? I'll come and preach you, but I have to go. Because you see, I started this work 34 years ago. I'm 64. I'm already down one leg. I'm wearing the other one out that I have to go and have surgery soon. But Dr. King said, get them. Because whatever you need to hear today was so important that you push that back. Because it's something that we need to learn. And in this quest for knowledge, you're going to find things. You're going to find that Big Mama might not want to talk about it. Because there's some things that they will take to the grave with them. And I always say the grave is full of stories. And if you have a grandmother that's still living, get to her soon and talk to her and ask those questions and record those things that she tells you. Because one day you'll be ever so happy that you did. This is May. And one of the things that we want to make sure that we change the narrative. You can search her out on Wikipedia. She has a sister named Annie. And they told the story. Her father was 115 when he died. And if my mind can be half of what that man's mind was, he was calling names out of what was done to him and who did it where. Sometimes I can't remember last week. But he held on to those things. And sometimes I would go to the house and I would want to just sit with him. And he was watching the TV one day and he saw this Caucasian man on the TV. He had a heart attack. And to go into the hospital, the family bandaged him for 1 month. One of the sisters didn't want to lose her father. She said, "Oh, come back. Because you make it dead, go back and relive all those things." You have to relive lynchings, murders, paintings, being raped, mama being raped, mama and sister, mama and the sister on the floor at the same time. If you want to learn more about May, just Google her name. May Louise Walden. If you know anything about Will Peter, his descendants is from Baton Rouge, and they did some genealogy for this movie Emancipation came out. But I was happy to read one of his descendants that wanted more about the family history. Like I said, I can understand sometimes why they don't want to share these things because it's painful. They love you so much they're trying to spare you from it. I don't want to be spared from it because you see, if I know something, I know how to prepare myself. And a lot of times we didn't prepare our children. That's why these things are not important. You see, when they got the cell phone in their hand, and now they come to the kitchen table, you got to sit the phone down because it's more important to what's going on Instagram, TikTok, than what Big Mama got to say, or Paul got to say. The movie May inspired the movie Alice, and that's what I want to tell you. I spoke to the producer, and the story didn't go anything like they said. Nobody wanted to know what the May do after she ran to her freedom. That's how she got her freedom in the first place. She ran to her freedom. And I said, if you would have came to me on the family, you'd have had a good story. But you see, that was Hollywood's version. And Hollywood would take our stories and make them feel like, first of all, sometimes it belonged to them, and they'll switch out a character and make that character be another person that is not even, that looks like you and I. And if the children don't watch it, give me 20 more years, Harrell, tell them you white. I'm speaking the truth. I'm speaking the truth. Because if we don't tell it and pass it down, look at dementia. The governor of Florida said that Any black books with black authors cannot be used in the state of Florida. But it was okay to give me hand-me-down books with stories that didn't look like me. But we're powerful, but still we rise. Can't stop us. That's all I can say. At one time, we couldn't read and write. There was laws that kept us from reading. There was laws that kept us from writing. So every time I read something in the attics in the courthouse, I read for those that had their eyes plucked out. Those that was sold if they got caught with a pencil or a book in their hand. Genealogy is not a hobby because I am the descendant. I'm 3 generations from slavery. My great-grandfather was a slave. 3 generations. So I can't say, let anybody tell me that my story doesn't matter. It's not a hobby, because if it was a hobby, I would do this and be relaxing. I wouldn't find painful things. I gotta go back and fetch the best and the worst that the past has. Because in all of it, there's a lesson. In all of it, there's strength. In all of it, that's what fuels me to go higher and higher. Every breath that's in my body, I have no time to waste. Much work to do. Leaving that paper trail for the next one that will come behind me. That's it. This is a case I worked on for 5 years. Murder, forced labor, and the forgotten black boys of Florida, those that are school in Florida. They're getting ready to now consider paying men 5 years. Now let me say this. The black side of the campus wasn't getting the due justice. And when I started interviewing these men, they started telling me about the things that they experienced at the reform school as little bitty boys. The man that you're looking at now, Pastor Johnny, he was 11 years old. He was sent to the school because he had a speech impairment. So they sent him straight from the jail to the school. And he witnessed children's hands in the hall pen. They Google this thing, Johnny Lee Gang, Mariana, Florida. So for 5 years, they've been negotiating whether they should give them compensation. And of course, there can be no amount of money. They can pay for the pain and those things that you saw. So this morning I was reading that those men have found, hopefully, the government is going to feel that they need to be paid. At least for mental health. Because all of it is so big. And this story was one of those stories I felt like I had been to the pits of hell. Because I could not believe what I was hearing and what I was reading in the Florida state of Florida as it relates to children. And I thought about my own 2 children, and I thought about my grandchildren. And I said, I got to fight, because if I don't fight this fight, it's one of the saddest stories I've heard. Preserving our history. I had to go back. I had to go back on that night. That many of us are getting. We'll get together with a family reunion gatherings, but we won't talk about the land that's been in the family for 100 years. We abandoned the cemeteries, those things that was once sacred to our ancestors. When they took the deeds and they put them in a can and they buried them in the ground because they knew what it was to wake up from sundown to sun up to sundown, picking cotton, chopping that cane for that land. They saw you. They wanted to give you something. In 1900, we owned 15.8 million acres of land. We down to less than 1.2 million. in 2020. So what do we leave the children? Look at it. Houses all over the world, all over the United States, the housing market is just more and more people becoming homeless every day. They can't afford to rent. So those acres that we walk off and left and go into the city and buy a lot, but we left 100 acres. Because sometimes we don't know the steps. And we won't get with an attorney that can advise us, what do we need to do to hold on to our ancestors' land? Because one day the children will have to return home. Just a matter of time. I can count the numbers of books on Black families that Salt Lake, Utah, Family Search, Salt Lake, Utah. Count. 1%, 2%. Why is that? It's nobody's fault but ours. And the reason I'm saying that is because when we were denied the privilege of education, reading, writing, we understood that, but they were still writing. They were still passing that down through oral history. Now we're not passing down to oral history. That was our way of keeping our family together through oral history. You know, you always hear people say, you know, a little boy in the neighborhood like me, and you know, when you want to come home and see me. The family start asking, what's your family name? Oh no, you can't date her, baby. That's your cousin. Especially for community. They would always say, now who's your mama? Who's your daddy? Where y'all live at? So they were doing their homework. See, we don't do that. Now the girls, that's no problem. What's his name? That's what we call it. See, it's not that times have changed.
Oh, yes. Oh,
Times
yes.
gonna be time. We're not gonna get another minute past 24 hours a day. Whatever your time is, between the birth and that's it. What you do with it in between with that slash, that's on you. My family has helped my husband. I'm not cooking. If the ancestors say, go in there and do this, you got to do it. Because I belong to them right now. Because I allow myself as a living vessel for them to come through me and guide me. And even when they come to me in the sleep and they say, get up and go to the courthouse. Every time I listen, I found just what they wanted me to say. So it becomes a spiritual thing as well. Because now you're learning to listen to, if you can listen to the Heavenly Father's voice that will talk to you, He's telling you. I said, first mind, get out the way. Then you got it. Because in the courthouse, there's a lot of books in it. Lots of books. Crawling up in the attic with no lights. I said, Father, how do you expect it? With flashlights. We had the flashlight, and the little guy that was working with Josh, he pulls a book, and he says, is this what you're looking for? I couldn't do nothing but cry. Because I'm in an attic, in the dark. And then when he took the flashlight and shined it on the brick, I said, Father, I know you're real. You're telling me to go back. You're telling me to unveil those things that was hid in the attic, in the hometown of Oprah Winfrey, where they was slavery was still existing. She won't tell that story. Helping others find their stories in their family history. Talk to them. Get to that auntie and talk to them. Ask those questions. Write the questions down. And allow her or him to talk. Do not ask 5 questions in 1 minute. When you ask that question, sit listen and let them. And even if they stray off a little bit, let them stray off a little bit. Let them talk. because sometimes they want to eat this. I had one lady call me and she said, I don't want to take you to the grave, but I just want you to know. I'm winding up back. She said, the boys that was in Florida, my husband and some other men used to get them out the reform school and bring them to the house. And all you can hear is screams in behind the boy. And I said, well, what do you think was happening behind the boy? She said, there was molesting of children. And sometimes they wouldn't even return them back to the reform school. So when I say she wanted to get off, one man called me, he said, look, he said, I just need somebody to listen to me. My father used to make me go to the lynchings with him. And I was a child and I used to watch that. And now I'm an alcoholic because I can't handle what I saw. Right. So then I have to take all of that in. I'm internalizing pain. And I'm saying, Heavenly Father, you give me the strength to let them live off their chest. Because for all those years, they walk around with things that we can't even understand. Look at the family. Just one more, go back. Look at family photographs, write their stories, record their stories. When I first started, they didn't have cell phones. But you can just take a photograph or you can record. See, now, there's no reason for us not to know. We're not birds. We're in family. When a bird hatches, you fly, it goes. But we're connected. We can't forget those that came before us. Because if we forget them, our children will forget us. We got to call their name out. Say, no, Papa wouldn't stand for that. We got to go back on those principles. And that was the shining light for us. And our God in that. Our story is a community story. Now, the Amen Library, Black History Unit. I managed to have 5 Black African-American collections as the Center for Southeast Louisiana Studies, where there was none. So now we have 5. The Drama Newspaper, Bernie's Bennett. See how quick I forget? See why I got away to go? 5 collections, where there was none. So you see, that's change.
Yes.
That's change. And that's what we have to keep fighting. And even now, look like the hands of time trying to roll back. And when it roll back, we roll forward.
Come on.
Still our rise. Still our rise. Nothing can hold me but the grave. Yeah. But even the grave can't hold like I just because I don't let others. Still rise. We don't jump off bridges. We fight because we have reason to fight. We have had to fight all of our days. And I'd rather have on my headstone. She died fighting for the liberation of our people, for her family, and to be the change that my ancestors created. Richardson's Funeral Home have preserved 1,600 funeral programs. If anybody knows about Black women,
Come on.
you go to a funeral, baby, if you want to see a flyer, I know you saw me trying to get that funeral. I know. And my mama had a collection, and like so many of our grandmothers. And I refused to have those collections thrown away.
Yeah.
We had the East Baton Rouge Library scanned 700, and the Center for South Louisiana now has 1,600 funerals in it. This is a story, Alan Crawford's story. And if you Google Alan Crawford, he was the one that was murdered at the cotton gin in Mississippi when Harrell was story. And Dr. King and Robert Alumnae was talking about him when he was in that movie Selma. They was talking about Louis Allen. That's his grandson, who I met about 3 years ago. And we've been researching their family history. Because, and I want to say this if I move forward. Louis Allen and his father, mother, and 2 sisters sold for $20 in tangible parish. So if you want to Google that, their story is out there too. When I found that document, I said, wait a minute, this is close to home. This is at the National Archives. And when I saw that in 1926, a family of 5 people, and Time magazine said the Pickaninnies, and I wrote Time magazine, I haven't got a response to this day, how they address the civil rights archive family. They were sold for $20, but let me repeat that again. A family of 5 sold for $20 in 1926 when slavery was supposed to be abolished. I belong to an organization, the History, Art, and Science Action, home bases in New York, the stories that I cover. Like I said, not all of my stories are good stories, but I have to tell you. And those stories are important to me. It's important to our children. I am partnering with some of the teachers in Tangipahoa Parish to create a curriculum for the children on local history. So I encourage all of you sisters, do it at the local level. When you do it on the local level, you will find there's a bigger connection, a bigger connection. You never know what you're going to unveil or unearth in your own research. Service to the community. Like I said earlier, I'm a mother of a grandmother. I went to collect stories and preserve these stories, but I found something else. I found people living on 5 active plantations. Not plantations where you go and you just hit it down. Talking about people that have left plantations for 5 generations. All Brown Plantation was one of them. In the story, the slave detective, the Southern Sea, went down with his family and never left the plantation. But I found people living in horrible conditions. And I know your foundation is built on service. I had to put the research down for 5 years to provide food, coats, help people get homes, because I found so much suffering. I found people still using outhouses. Houses where you see where they took little cans and they put it on the floor and pitched the water. In this day and time. A person called me yesterday and he said, Dr. Harrell, I see it on the video, but I don't believe it. I just need to go lay my eyes. One of my friends said it was staged. I said, Father, God, my tongue. God. That's what Harry Tubman said. She said, I could have freed more than just with a good eye. The stage power. That's how we're in the deep sea. I mean, layers and layers and layers gotta come. Because some people need to stay. There's people in conditions equal to that of third world. So some of the service work that we did, I had to form an organization called Gathering for Hearts, which I didn't have time for that, but I had to do something because people was donating, even though the donate you have to track. We opened up the first reading room in Well, Mississippi. We donated over 10,000 books because they didn't have a library. And people donated books, and my colleagues and the volunteers and Gathering Hearts they helped to get those books to Mississippi. On the top, that's a church. Right there, they made these. We wanted to donate computers to different churches for after-school programs to help the children. And even people drop off stuff right now to my home to give out to those that need it. So there's always socks or something. Whenever I go in the Mississippi Delta, there's food, socks, or something in my trunk of my car because somebody always needs something. And that's the laptop computers that just donated to St. Helena Multiple Center. We have sponsors for some other churches that would open up and have after-school programs. The Rotary, the Cincinnati, Ohio Rotary donated to some students that chose to do their school project on my work. So they decided to give them $10,000 to come down to meet with me for 1 week. And they also bought 400 book bags, enough to give to Mississippi and St. Helena Valley. So I was really honored of those junior high students for taking on that endeavor to give back. And although some of them was going through things themselves, but they reached back. Until the mind tells a story, and we will always be the hero. And that is my ending. My phone number, if anybody want any more information, 504-858-4658. And it's my email at Harrell14@gmail.com.
Thank you for that, Dr. Harrell. Let's give her another round of applause. We will have a brief question and answer session. So, if anybody has a question, I see two hands. As do you and then I'll do Judge Green.
Thank you so much. From the bottom of my heart. I'm a displaced Louisiana. All four of my generations of my family came from Louisiana. I grew up in California, and now I'm back home. I live here in Baton Rouge. My family's from all over the state. How would you suggest that I get started? And there's things that I have stories, I have pieces. I went home to see my grandmother who's 90 to grab the church Bible so I could get the Bible so I could get the genealogy, right? Because I have starting places. But I keep running into these dead ends. And I can't, kind of unravel all of it. And so my question really is, when you get to these dead ends, or like, what do you do to try to keep putting all the pieces together when you have places to start and you have things to pull, but you can't just and all of them are gone except for my grandmother that is 90. I know that my great aunt was born in 1898 and was the first Black woman here in the state to get a hysterectomy without her own knowledge. But then I can't, right? And I know that story from an oral tradition that I know, but then I can't. So I have all these oral histories, I have all these oral stories, I have pieces, but I can't put them together. So my question is the census.
Have you looked at the United States Census?
Yeah.
From 1950 to 1870?
Yeah, but no, they were still, they should still, some of them still were in Louisiana. Yeah, oh, so you're saying you go to the census?
Yeah, go to Ancestry or Family Search. I use Ancestry because it's easier for me. And as a feedback or Family Search is free, set up an account and just use the census. Work 1950 all the way back to 1870. But get as much as you can from your grandmother, that's your grandmother, as much as you can from her sister's, her brother's name, her parents' name, her grandmother, and use the census. Call me, and if there's something I can help you search with, I would be glad to do it. My best hour of research is 10 o'clock at night.
Yes, me
Because
too.
I'm not distracted, the phone, so.
I write the best between 10 and 5 in the morning.
10 o'clock at night, so you have my phone.
Thank you.
Judge Grace.
Okay, so first, you gave great direction. And I'm trying to figure out, I've traced my family back to Mississippi. The census, I was just telling the line, said maybe that's why I need to go back, go to Mississippi and look at the census. But my question, because I think I did good with that for family group, all of that. My question is a little different. So I'm always trying to teach history to younger people, right? And I like your statement that you should focus on local history. And so where would you direct, starting for local history? I'm not technically interested in individuals, but like Wheeling College and schools that, things like that connect to them, so they can see how the schools or the demographic may have changed in that area. How can I find more information about that?
Are you starting in Louisiana, Mississippi?
For the local one, that group.
There is an online newspaper, newspaper.com. And a lot of times, 2 o'clock in the morning, when the mom is asleep, I will go to the old newspapers, and I'm gonna tell you something. I found so many articles that was published with the Louisiana Weekly in the 1959, somewhere in that area. You could narrow your search down to what location, and just type in Wheeling College, because for the most part, every area had a reporter and an agent that was writing about these areas. But Wheeling College, you can find a lot, and go to the state library, right here in Baton Rouge. Because a lot of the newspapers offer more information to me than I found in some of those other places, especially with the black schools.
And my last question, you said you have 5 collections. What does your collection consist of? Is it
That's a
pictures,
very good question.
stories?
Documents, photographs, church bulletins, anything that is original. So what I did, I scanned the copies for myself, and I put the originals in the repository. But I also had VH tapes that go back to like 1990. I use Legacy Box, and I sent those tapes off. Now they're digitized. I can turn that over to them as well. So the collection consists of many different things, but it was original.
And I just asked for your name.
Yeah, you can go online right now to the Center for South Louisiana Studies, and if you put my name in, you will see an index. Now, they do not show you the original document online, but they have an index to tell you what is in that collection. And so that's the same thing with the Alumnae. There is photographs in there. The Alumnae wanted my originals. So the Alumnae takes no copies. It has to be original. So when you make sure that now you want to donate your documents and your family papers, they're going to give you a contract, and it's provisions. So like if I want my grandkids to have direct access to my documents, in case people write a book or make a film, I want them to have the right to do that. So you make sure that you're going to donate something, you keep certain rights for yourself and your family.
Any more questions? I do have a question, Dr. Harrell. I don't know, for some reason, like, and I don't think it's Black History Month, but every book I've been reading lately is like Black history. One of my favorite writers is Lauren Person. She's like an anthropologist. But I mean, you remind me so much of her in a lot of ways. And so in her recent, she wrote a book called American Community. And sure you're familiar with this course. But one of the passages in Veracruz, it says, Cujo, or consult a trusted person to tell his story and transmit it to the world. And so that's when I said, I think it reminds me so much of you, because people who you talk to, they trust you. You know, and I mean, and I don't take that for granted. So I just wonder, why do you think they trust you?
That's what we don't. Sometimes before I can get a story, you have to build a relationship. I had to earn that trust.
Yeah.
And had to protect that trust. And so I've spent some time, a year or two, just being there for them, just being, developing a relationship. And they open up to share. It wasn't easy for me and a sister to open up and talk about that. And when you look at one of her news statements that she made to the news, she said, I didn't even want to tell anyone that. But I earned trust. And that trust was very important. If they told me to turn the camera off, I turned the camera off. If they said, do not tell this, I didn't tell them. And so they didn't have to worry about me sharing that with someone. Everything that I share is because they gave me permission to share. But I do want to say one thing that's very important for churches. The AME Zion Church keeps very good records. We would know a lot of information had it not been for some of the AME Zion. The Baptist Church, Church of God in Christ, and other churches, they don't really keep good records. It's like when the pastor changes out, the secretary takes the records. And those are very important records because it tells you who's buried in the cemetery. Or what, the weddings that came to be or different things. They don't have those records. But the Zion, the AME Church, I really commend them for keeping great records. That was very important. Very good.
Did anybody have any last minute questions or comments? I think, Ms. Carmen?
I love what you said about getting to your loved ones. Finding anything that they want to talk about, having questions that you want them to answer. I get the feeling that somebody at AT&T did not finish their assignment, because when that impulse comes to pick up the phone and call your loved one, it just seems like that should work. But like you said, get to them. And a comment on Leland College. You might want to talk to your older Baptist ministers. Reverend Cyrus should be a good resource. He can point you in on the directions. And they may have graduates that you want to talk to. You might want to talk to Denise Clark, because her mom was on that last part of graduates who then went on to Southern for even higher work on their degrees and careers. That would be excellent.
Thank you, Jeanette. Any other questions? We're gonna take about 2 to 3 more, and then we're gonna run.
I don't have a question, but I started, my mom had started, so I'm trying to pick up where she left off. But I also utilize the phone books. I have a collection of phone books, so I go back in those phone books and I look for the names of people and then I go and try to research those people. So
And those
that's.
funeral programs, they have major roles.
Yes, yes.
Please don't forget, and ask them if they have a collection of funeral programs.
I have those too.
And let me just advise you, keep good notes, because when I first started, I was jotting things down, And sometimes I go back and say, what is this? So make sure you keep good notes, you know, and process your notes, and, you know, do not go past 2 days without processing, because if not, you'll get lost.
Anyone? Ms. Cormier?
I'm remembering another resource, the Mormon Church, excellent with legacies. And there is a Mormon church right here in Baton Rouge. They have a library, they open it occasionally with requests, and they will teach you about doing research for your family.
Now, with the Mormons, I do use them, but when it comes down to my family tree, I keep it private on Ancestry, because the Mormons, everything is really open for anybody. And with that, sometimes they can change the information, but on Ancestry, they cannot. I did trace my family origin to Niger, Africa. So when I hit that brick wall, I did take a DNA test, and when I looked at my DNA summaries, I saw different connections. But when I traced, there was two, Niger, Africa, I went there for 2 weeks. And when I tell you, though, now brick walls are different than it was a few years ago. But the DNA has really helped me. And I'm gonna tell you how important it is. I have a friend, she and I have been friends for 25 years, she's in her 80s. I took the pictures at her husband's funeral. I took the pictures of his son. Well, on DNA, through ancestral DNA, her son took the DNA test, turned out to be my brother. All of these years, was the same school. I'm thinking that he belonged to the other man, he thought he belonged to the other man, and today, he's my brother, and I'm like, oh my God, look, it was the same school, with the same age, we could have dated, I would have been out of my mind. It's crazy, been out of my mind, but I just want to say that, DNA, and it's like, we had to take a month to digest it. It wasn't easy. So if it wasn't easy for me, can you imagine you thought this man was his father that entire time? Raised him, that's my daddy. So the man went to his grave, not knowing that this man wasn't his son of my daddy. Another lady, she was married to her father. Yes, let me tell you what happened with that story. And you can Google that story online. You know how people get to the funeral and they say, who is talking? Girl, who that is? You know how people do.
Yeah. That's how Kurt Franklin found out about me. Yeah. They was whispering at you.
It was right of you. So she overheard them say, you know that was a man. So she pondered with that woman.